Alright, what's up guys? We got here today a 2016 YZ250F and we think it needs a valve adjustment. Yeah. So the symptoms are, it's hard to start. It sounds like it's popping out of the intake here, and the guy said it's popping out of the exhaust, backfiring. So we're thinking it's gonna need a valve adjustment. So we're just gonna tear into it. We're gonna take seat off the tank, get to the valve cover, and we'll show you how to do a valve adjustment here. You'll want a couple tools. You'll want a shim kit, you'll want feeler gauges. You'll want the shim kit specific for the 250, so there's different sizes between the 250s and 450s. Some are 9.48 millimeter and the 250s are 7.48, and you'll be wanting to use those.
So first things first, we're just gonna go ahead and take off all these bolts to these plastics and just see what we got under.
Alright, so we took everything off. We got access to the valve cover. Just 2 bolts here, took out the spark plug, take off this breather hose, and this can come right off. And then we're also gonna need to take off these axis screws. One's to the crankshaft and one's the timing mark. So we're gonna take these off and set this thing to top dead center. And then I'll show you guys the valves and how we measure the clearances. Alright, so we got the axis caps off, we got the valve cover off. So basically, we're just gonna spin this and get it top dead center. And to do that, we're gonna spin it counterclockwise. You need a 17 millimeter. And you're gonna line up an arrow with this notch on the crankcase. So just put your wrench in, start twisting it counterclockwise. And we're gonna see a notch in there. All right, we got the notch lined up over here, and you'll see the cam lobes will be facing up. So once they're facing up, we can measure the clearances in between the cam lobe and the buckets. So we're gonna grab the feeler gauge and measure in between each one. All right, so on the intake side, we're supposed to be between 0.12 millimeters and 0.19. And I have a 0.05 millimeter, and this is the only one that's going in, so they're a little too tight. Definitely gonna need a re-shim, and that was probably causing the backfire and popping. So we're gonna record down. We're gonna write down what size fits in between the cam and the shim bucket, and we're gonna record it down. All right, so I went through all the valves and they're all too tight. So just to keep track, write down, put the front of the bike and the back of the bike, and just remember which one's intake and exhaust. So the intakes were way too tight. The exhaust, they're still too tight. They all need to be shimmed. So basically how I have this front right one at 0.08, if I grab my 0.08 feeler gauge, there should just be a little bit of resistance in there. And I can just feel that little bit of resistance. So that's the gap right there, but we need to shim down because the clearances are too tight. So we're gonna dig into that now. All right, so we gotta loosen the chain. Chain is still tight, and the tensioner's on the side right here. We're gonna loosen this bolt, just a 10 mil. Once we loose tension on the chain, we're gonna undo these 4 bolts in a crisscross pattern, and we're gonna do them evenly. So let's take the tension off the chain now. All right, so to loosen the tension, just take off this bolt, and it helps if you have a flat screwdriver, so one with a straight edge. Like this one has a tapered edge and it won't fit in there. But if you can see here, if I stick the screwdriver in and if I turn it clockwise, you can see the chain just loosening. So I can loosen the tension by hand here. Just turning in clockwise, so. All right, for the tensioner, I just twisted it all the way in with this and it just locks and it stays loose. So we'll be able to loosen it after. I got the bolts off the cam cover, so these should just come off now. Just be careful with them. And then we're gonna have to take off this guide too. Don't lose this. So there's a guide right here. So we're gonna take that all off now. All right, so we got the covers off. We got the guides that go here and here. And make sure the dowel pins come off. There's 2 dowel pins on each one. There are these dowel pins right here and right here. Take these off. There's 2 dowel pins on this one too, as you can see. Now the cams are just ready to come off with the tension loose. We'll be able to take them off now. All right, cams are off. We have the chain tied up. So now we're just gonna grab the buckets with the magnet. We're gonna keep track of where we grab them from. So we're gonna grab one at a time. You can see the shim is still in there. So this was the front right. So we're just gonna set it here and we're gonna keep track. So that was the front right. Let's grab this one. And you can see the shims are staying in. Sometimes they'll still stay in their slot here. Last one. All right, so now we're gonna write down what shim is in there. So we're gonna take that shim out, we're gonna write it down, and then we're gonna calculate what size shim we need to put to go down the right size so we have the proper valve clearance. All right, all the shims and buckets are out. And on some of them, they have writing on how big they are. So this one says 205, but on some of them you can't see because they got wore off the writing on them on what size they are. So what you're gonna need is a digital caliper or a micrometer, and you're just gonna stick it in and tighten it up. And as you can see, this one's 205 also. So I wrote that down for this one. It's a 205 I wrote down. I wrote down the clearance, and then we're gonna calculate what new shim we need to put in. All the old ones are all the same size. Usually they're different, so this one's a 205 also. So we're gonna calculate what size shim we need to put in now. All right, so I calculated what shims it needs. This one was a 195, I put it in, 195. And 200, or 2.0, 1.95. So I'm just putting them in where they go. I already put one in. This is the next one. So you can see I just put one there. And I need this one and this one in. And we're gonna throw the buckets on too. All right, so we got the cams in, and we're just gonna check them one more time. So I got the 0.13. So this should go into the intake, and it does, slides in. Should go in right here. Yes, slides in. Then for the exhaust, 0.18 millimeters should go in. That's right here, and you see, goes in perfect. A little bit of resistance. And then it goes in right there. You can see it coming out. And then we also got it in time. So you're gonna see there's a dot there parallel with the head, and a dot there parallel with the head. The chain is still loose, and we're gonna free it up from the tensioner, and hopefully the slack will go away, and then we can put everything back together. All right guys, it's running. Valves sound good.